Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a crime film from South Korea, Korean language English subs, released in the year 2018, directed by Ha-young Lee, and this film is called Believer. So Believer is set in the criminal underworld of South Korea, and there is a detective who is trying to bring down a mysterious figure named Mr. Lee. Now Mr. Lee is the boss of this drug syndicate that no one has met, so they can't put a face to the name, and he does his business through other people, and so he's very elusive and he's very mythical. But this detective is going to stop at nothing to try and bring him down for reasons that are personal. So then one day there is an explosion at this drug lab and there is a survivor. Now this survivor is said to work for this drug lord and he feels a little bit betrayed. And so he says to the detective in charge of this investigation that maybe he can uncover the identity of Mr. Lee and that can bring the detective a lot of relief. And so as the detective and this mysterious man start to work together, there are a few trust issues that really spiral things down a very complicated path that could lead to danger. So whether or not it does is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Believer. This is definitely a movie that not many people talk about, so for that reason I was a little bit skeptical, but I'm always excited coming into a South Korean film, especially a crime film. There's been a lot of really good South Korean crime thrillers out there, and so for that reason I really wanted to see this film. But I had a little bit of skepticism because usually when South Korean cinema explodes on the world stage, they are very, very good. But then sometimes you have films that no one talks about for a very good reason is because they're just not that memorable. But there are hidden gems. And that's the beauty of cinema, is that sometimes you can see a movie that no one really pays attention to. And so it's something that you can really recommend and get out there. And I was hoping that Believer would be one of those films. Now, I do believe this is based, or a remake, on Drug Wars, which is a Chinese crime movie. I haven't seen Drug Wars, so I can't compare the two, so I'm just basing this review on this South Korean film alone, which is basically what you should do all the time. So I haven't seen that, and whether or not it is a remake, please feel free to let me know. So coming into Believer, as I said, the expectations were at a very curious level, and after watching this film, I will say that it's serviceable. But unfortunately, it just stays at serviceable because I just don't think enough attention was put into the minor details. Now, this is definitely second tier South Korean cinema. First tier, or top tier, you've got movies from Park Chan-wook, Bong Joon-ho, Hong Ji-na, and Kim Ji-woon. Films such as Parasite, I Saw the Devil, all these movies that make Korean cinema what it is. And then you've got the second tier. Now these are movies that no one talks about. And so they're serviceable and they are worth watching, but they just don't quite reach that level of films that have set the standard. Then you've got the lower tier, and the lower tier is just crap. So this is a movie that's in the middle. It's not crap, but then again it's nothing brilliant. And I'll go into the problems I had with it a little bit later. But what I liked about this film is that I thought the production was very, very impressive. And it does create a very morbid mood. This is the drug world, this is the drug syndicate, and I thought that the very dreary setting that this film had actually it allowed you to open the door and go into the world of drugs, a drug syndicate, and how dangerous it was. I thought there was some very good suspense. I thought the characters were very shady, and so I thought this is an environment that I don't want to be a part of, and so you do feel very uneasy. And so the dark atmosphere that the director manages to create, I thought it did the overall mood justice, and it's a movie that is trying to set the mood of somewhere that is very uncomfortable, and I think the overall production, the cinematography, does a good job of that. I thought that there were very good moments of action choreography. There's a lot of gunfights in this film. It is fairly brutal, and so the action set pieces were really well done. They're actually quite frenetic and exhausting by the time they finish, and I thought that the tone of the film stays very true. There's a lot of drug use, and so it is a harder type of crime film, which is everything that you want. And I thought that the continuity, it never really gets boring, although it does have issues. I never felt as I was looking at my watch, I wanted this to finish. I thought, all right, well, at the end of it, it was serviceable, but unfortunately the reason why it is only that is because I always felt this is a generalisation of what a crime film should be. Is that, all right, the director has seen, whether he's seen Drug Wars, I don't know, but whether he's seen other crime films, the overall formula and the way this movie transpires is something that you've seen in crime movies. It's a matter of trust and, what is going to happen. Is someone going to betray the other person and all that? And that's something you've seen in other films, but the failure to give you details in the individuals in this movie is what prevents it from being memorable. Now, what I mean by that is that the characters, apart from one character, the Chinese gangster that I thought was brilliant, the rest of the characters just blend into each other. And so it's a generalisation of people in a crime film as opposed to actually genuinely relating to someone or really rooting for someone. I thought the main character, detective, I didn't care if he found Mr. Lee or not. And I thought Mr. Lee was very bland. Is that, yes, most of the movie he's elusive, but I thought there's a reason he's elusive, and the reason is because he's just not that memorable. And so I thought he was lacking the intimidation that the Chinese character had, so it would have been a lot better if more attention was put onto this Chinese character. So the lack of self-awareness in where the positives as far as characterisation is concerned, and so for that, that is just a massive pitfall, is because you don't have any memorable qualities, you don't have any relatability to anybody involved, and so when the action set pieces are taking place, yes, they're very impressive, but you're marvelling at how impressive it is as far as production is concerned, as opposed to actually feeling the suspense on a personal level. So there's just no personal connection to anything that this movie has going for it, which is ultimately the reason why it is a serviceable film. It's not a boring movie, but it's just nothing like New World or Bittersweet Life. These movies from South Korea that are crime films that are very emotional because the characters are very likeable and very interesting. But I just didn't think any character in this movie, barring the Chinese psychopath, was anything to really write home about. And so at the end of the film, I thought, all right, well, it's a very dark film. It's the themes of drugs and how damaging drugs can be, I thought was interesting, but unfortunately, interesting is where this movie stays, and unfortunately, it's just not going to be something you're going to remember in a few days' time. So overall, it's serviceable. Watch it if you come across it, but don't go out of your way to see it, to track it down, because it just doesn't have the qualities that make South Korean cinema as good with its reputation, and as a result of that, I'm going to give Believer 3 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.